So before I introduce our panelists, let me tell you why you're here, why you should listen to this panel. So we are happy for you to make the journey till the City Hall of Corpich. And we already hear this morning a lot about e-commerce, digital trade, the fantastic growth of the sector in Cambodia. What we have heard as well is the importance for SMEs, MSMEs to be able to onboard on marketplaces, to be able to sell and buy online, on marketplaces, on platform, be them Cambodian ones, but also international ones. And this brings a score of issues, concerns, challenges, questions. So I will ask some of these questions to our audience, but towards the end of the discussion, I'd like also to invite questions from the audience. So if something comes to mind during our presentation, during the presentation of our panelists, feel free to make a mental note and ask the questions towards the end. So more formally, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session on strengthening governance and policy framework for a code of conduct for online business in Cambodia. As Cambodia's digital economy expands rapidly, the need for clear, transparent, and reliable rules of online engagement becomes even more critical. A code of conduct provides the foundations for fair competition, consumer protection, and responsible business practices in the e-commerce space. Around the world, governments and industry have recognized that voluntary codes of conduct and trust mark scheme play a pivotal role in building confidence online. In countries such as Singapore, Japan, Australia, codes of conduct for e-commerce guides businesses on fair practices, dispute resolution, and data protection. Within ASEAN as well, we have seen initiatives promoting a harmonized standards, digital trust, and consumer safeguards. And this can serve as useful references for Cambodia's design of its own approach. So today, I have with me 4 experts in their field, representing different organizations, public and private, and I'm going to quiz them. I have a lot of tough questions. If you know me as a moderator, I like to surprise them. Don't be scared, it's okay. And I'd like to ask your help as well in doing so. So let me introduce our speakers before we move to the actual questions. So I'd like to start with Gretchen Aquino from ADB, the Asian Development Bank. So Gretchen Aquino is a senior lawyer and development professional with 18 years of experience. 18 years? How old were you when you started? At ADB, Gretchen leads the TA teams under the Law and Policy Reform Program, delivering legal, policy, and e-commerce initiatives across Asia. ADB's development members, such as Cambodia, Mongolia, among others. She previously worked for UNDP and for Research World Manila. She holds a Law Doctor from Ateneo de Manila University and is admitted to the Philippine Bar. So thank you, Gretchen, for coming over from Manila to join us today. To Gretchen's right, we have Oleg Leonov from Zen.com. Oleg is the Global Licensing Director at Zen.com, driving the company's expansion in Asia. With over a decade of experience in compliance, risk management, financial services, he previously led fraud prevention and compliance at G2A.com, serving over 25 million users. His expertise spans AML, risk analysis, regulatory compliance, and is a recognized speaker on global compliance and risk management, and is also one of the sponsors for this event. Thank you, Oleg, for joining us. To Oleg's right, I have the pleasure of welcoming Massimo Geloso Grosso. He is the head of the OECD Jakarta office, leading the organization engagement in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia's OECD accession and ASEAN cooperation. Previously, he co-developed the Services Trade Restrictedness Index, in short STRI. He has worked for the Italian Ministry of Economic Development, UNCTAD, as an OECD consultant, and he holds a PhD in economics from Sciences Po Paris. Welcome, Massimo. And finally, to my left, I would say the local expert, Mike, or as we know him, Kang Sovanarot. So Mr. Kang Sovanarot, also known as Mike, oversees Grab's mobility and deliveries operation in Cambodia. He launched Grab Express and expanded services such as GrabMart and GrabFood. Earlier on, he co-founded MLab Cambodia and managed a premium F&B business. He's passionate about mentoring startups. He contributes to Cambodia's digital transformation in different capacity, and he holds a degree in Management Information System and MBA in Global Innovation Management. So now you know who you are facing. You know who you are going to hear. And I'd like you to pay attention now. So let's go to the topic of this panel. So the way we are going to work is I have 2 rounds of questions to our panelists. And after these 2 rounds, I hope we can get questions from the audience. The first round would be about what I call framing perspectives. So here we want to talk about the code of conduct, obviously, the code of conduct for e-commerce operators in Cambodia. But we don't want to hear only from the platform side. We also want to hear from the consumer side, from the merchant side, and also from the development partners of Cambodia's side. So that would be the first part of the discussion. The second part will be on the way forward. If we were to have this code of conduct on e-commerce in Cambodia, if we establish and enforce Cambodia e-commerce trust mark system, what it means, how do we adapt, how do we get our buyers and our sellers to be confident transacting online. So that's what we want to hear out of this first panel. There will be 2 other panels in this Digital Trade Forum this afternoon and tomorrow. One would be led by my good friend Soka. So you have to stay for this afternoon and tomorrow because the 3 panels, they are complementary. You cannot understand the third one if you don't join the first and the second one. So very important that you all stay here. So enough introduction. I see that all my panelists are very tense. Can we give a round of applause to encourage them? Thank you. Thank you. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you because you're the local guy, the local expert. So Mike, from a platform operator's perspective, what practical measures are needed in Cambodia for merchants in the future to comply with a code of conduct, and for Grab also to comply with the code of conduct? What is needed? Are you expected to be forced to do this? It has to be voluntary? It has to be free? What are the measures that could be in place for this?
Okay, thanks, Sven, for the questions. I don't think I can call myself an expert, but I would gladly share what we have learned from my experience operating in this market. So code of conduct, right, or in simple terms, let's say do's and don'ts, to simplify the words. In my opinion, I don't think we should see code of conduct as a red tape, but we should see it as a tool to help business grow in the long term. Again, the keyword here is long term. And maybe what I have learned in the past years, a few points, right? Maybe 2 or 3 points. The first point, in my opinion, to get our merchant partners, our driver partners to comply with the code of conduct is, firstly, is education during onboarding. Education is super important. What I mean here is a lot of the time, at Grab, we have a lot of code of conduct, especially since we are international companies. We have a very high bar in all these do's and don'ts. A lot of the time, the merchant partner, it's not that, or driver partners, it's not that they don't want to comply. It's not that in their intention to break the rules, but it's simply lack of awareness. And this lack of awareness is crucial for us as a platform, as a digital platform, to continue to educate them. And education is not easy, right? It's easier said than done. But we are dealing with a lot of different types of merchant partners, driver partners. So we need to localize our do's and don'ts to match what they can absorb. Whether it's localizing the content, whether it's turning text into video formats, easy learnable, to make sure that they really aware what they should do and what they should not. So I would say first and foremost is education, super important to get the awareness up. And then second one is your approach, right? There's a carrots and the stick approach. We have to balance it. I always encourage to do the carrot approach, meaning to incentivize them rather than penalizing them for breaking code of conduct. We need to. It's hard, but we need to keep pushing for them to adopt. It's a long journey, and it's not easy. So incentivize them. For example, if someone following, we have at Grab, we have a lot of quality framework and programs that making sure our merchant partners, if they comply with all our do's and don'ts, depending on their scores, they get more support, more visibility, therefore more sales. We try to incentivize them to do good, right? To cleanliness at their restaurant, our driver partners fully comply with our safety standards, and all those things. We really encourage us to incentivize them rather than penalizing. But we need to balance again, of knowing when to use penalize, when to use incentivize. I highly encourage platforms to be kind and incentivize people to follow. And the third one is technology. Using technology and AI to help us, the platform, help us flag bad behaviors, help us flag untransparent contents or other things. Right? Us operating a digital platform, serving millions of people, then it's crucial for us to invest in technology to help us. We cannot just throw bodies to do things manually, but we need to do it in a scalable way. So investing in technology and AI to help us flag all these, because we're working with huge data, right? Customer content generation. So I think these three things that we practice and highly encourage all platforms to do the same. Education, try to educate them, try to tell them what do and don't in a very localized, hyper-localized format, making sure they understand, making sure we keep doing it. It's not a one-time thing, but we keep doing it over and over. Second one is technology, as I said. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. If you allow me, maybe a follow-up questions. In the first part of your response, you say that as an international company, you have to adhere to a number of code of conduct. Those code of conducts, are they public, private? Are they from your own firm? Are they imposed on you by international bodies, by local authorities? What type of code of conduct you have to adhere to?
So code of conduct can be customized based on our country policies and laws and different. We make sure we meet all the compliance, and we do more based on the practice and based on the learnings that we have from other countries. For example, customer data protection. We take this one super seriously, right? Because operating a digital platform, the platform is the first touch point to our customers. And this relationship, the foundation of this relationship or any relationship is trust. making sure the customers trust us. They buy food on our platform, they take rides on our platform. We need to make sure that we protect their personal data. So we have a lot of personal data protection practices inside our company. Even customer support team, the call centers, they sit in a separate room where even I cannot enter to listen to the conversation. Certain people, certain roles have access to certain personal information. These we take super seriously to win customers' trust and making sure that our team really follow this. We have very strict rules on these code of conducts.
Thank you, Mike. Very important points on you just mentioned on the data, on awareness, education, technologies. And then one of the very important aspects of building trust and for businesses to buy online or sell online and for consumers to buy online or sell sometime is payment, right? If you ask the private sector in Cambodia, how can you do better in terms of e-commerce? Most of them will tell you, well, fix the payments. You know, we want to be sure that we are going to get our money, or if I pay, that my financial data are not going to be stolen, right? So I'd like to turn to Mike. Sorry, not to Mike, not again. to Oleg. Oleg, as you're working in a cross-border payment service provider, obviously. You know about finance, you know about digital payments. I'd like to understand from you, how do you make financial transaction more secure so that businesses selling online or consumer buying online feel confident to go online, to put their data online, and for buyers to get paid efficiently, securely from whatever payment service providers they work with. Over to you.
Thank you. So that's a very trick question, so to speak, because code of conduct plays an immense role in this particular activity. It's like a wheel in a car. Technically, you can go without it, technically, but with 4 wheels, it's kind of more convenient, right? So by utilizing code of conduct both internally and externally, you can drive both customers and employees, which for financial institution is more important. How to engage customer, how to engage payments. We are responsible for customer money and their full identity. Being compliant with all the AML regulations, with all the compliance requirements, FATF, you name it, a lot of 3-4 letter agencies that supervise you, the failure can bring your downfall. So I like to say a lot of times that my job and the job of departments that are responsible for transaction execution, for proper customer data retention and storage, their job boils down to the disaster that never happened. So by implementing the standard, by explaining to the customers that data should be segregated and separated, it should be treated on the need-to-know basis, need-to-have basis. Customer support does not need to have the personal data of all the UBOs of our merchants. Why would they? The account admins do. So you provide this and these values that drive the operational activity of people. And at a certain point in time, if you reward this activity and penalize the misconduct, you can upbring the generation of very high qualified employees that do not need to be reminded on a daily basis how important that is. This is how important the code of conduct is, and adhering to it from the board level all the way down. It's like a Tetris of sorts. I'm sure everybody played it. Your successes disappear, but if you make a disaster, that one stays with you forever, especially now in the digital era. You fail once, it doesn't matter how good you are afterwards. People will remember that you already failed, so you lost your trust that you built over the years, and it will take you years and years to rebuild that. So when you operate in the cross-border manner, you are also exposed to not only your conduct, but the conduct of your partners. So it goes even one level higher. You cannot just simply send money, let's say from Europe to Cambodia. Not possible. You will go through SWIFT network, right? Do the corresponding banking adhere to your standards? Are you positive that they can do that? Maybe they do, because they are like highly paid banks, HSBC, cities, and everyone else. How about local PSPs? They are imperative if you want to grow on the local market. For example, entering Cambodian market without partnership with Bakong, it's nonsense. So you have to cooperate with them. Now, how will they verify us that we adhere to their standards? How would we have confidence in delivering our customer data to them to execute the payments? All of this contributes to your trust between buyer and the seller. At the very end, that's all it is about. If I use this example, when I first moved to Asia, I was buying stuff as empty apartment. I need at least furniture, right? So I found what I need in some store, and I think it was Malaysia, and it looks weird to my European taste. It looks weird, so I didn't buy. Lack of trust. I don't know if they were trustworthy or not. So it boils down to the payment provider, to the merchant itself. Can they demonstrate professionalism, adherence to the international standards or local standards to make myself and any customer as a buyer to share their money, to basically invest into somebody else's business for product and service, and have trust that this product and service will be delivered. So it is one of the most important parts of the organization, similar level as AML policy and risk management strategy. All of that can bring your downfall, so you must make sure that it is on the great level of professionalism and highest level of standard. So the last point was when it was mentioned by Her Excellency Chamnimul about introducing code of conduct by regulator. That's a good step because it provides guidance across the board. But it's fair to expect that it will be general. It will have general standards. And as my colleague mentioned before, you have to tailor it to yourself, to your own industry, to your own company culture, and to your customer database. What do they expect? What would they like to see? So yes, regulatory input is extremely valuable because it sets the bar, but it's good practice to be above that.
Thank you, Oleg, and that's an excellent segue to the question I'm going to ask Gretchen. I'll come back to you on the second round of question on this aspect. Gretchen, I think you or Caroline mentioned beforehand the support that ADB has provided to the Ministry of Commerce in developing the code of conduct and further on the Cambodia e-commerce trust mark system. So it might be surprising for those of you or those of us not familiar with the work of ADB to see ADB supporting this. So my first question to you is why the support to the sector, to building trust for e-commerce, and more importantly, going forward, what type of regulatory reform could be put in place to ensure compliance with the code of conduct? Or do you think that the code of conduct is good enough and then we leave it to the marketplaces to do their own job?
Thank you so much, Sven, for your question. And I'm very happy to be here. It's my third year back in Cambodia, and this time through the new gateway, the Techo International Airport. So just to give a bit of a background, we have been conducting the Asian Development Bank through the Office of the General Counsel's Law and Policy Reform has been working with the Ministry of Cambodia via the Ministry of Economy and Finance since 2021. And we have built on our work. Our focus is on enabling a conducive environment for the digital economy. And our technical assistance team has been operating also in the Kyrgyz Republic and in Mongolia. Now, we have provided support to Cambodia in 3 key areas, which are first, the Code of Conduct, which is our topic for today, for this session. Second is the e-learning modules, which is hosted in the ADBI website, which we have completed in 2023. And later, the SETS, or Cambodia E-Commerce Trust Mark Scheme. And if you have more questions on that, I will direct you to Director Chetra, who I saw earlier. Now, I understand the Code of Conduct is mandatory or required under Article 27 of the e-commerce law of Cambodia. And I can tell you that when our team developed this together with our experts, Danny Burrows and Nyara Cheng, that we have really looked into international best practices. There was a benchmarking study which included Netherlands, Canada, ASEAN. So we've looked into that. And so there's already a proposed draft. And this includes provisions on transparency, intellectual property, rights and obligations, data protection. So it's all in there. And now to answer your question about the regulatory mechanisms in force, I actually had to check with Director Chetra earlier, a few days ago, on what the status is. And I understand that it's still it's being discussed with the Ministry of Post and Telecommunications, and that there is more support needed there. But I think this code of conduct, and I had to verify this with our expert Nyara Cheng. I was like, Nyara, substantive question: is it voluntary or mandatory? Because I thought it was required under Article 207. It's like the issuance is, but the code of conduct, it's voluntary. So I think it's a self-regulating mechanism because it all has the standards. And if you break one or two, then okay, but what is the penalty? But if that loses its credibility in the long term, then the clients, the buyers, would also lose faith in this code. So I think preliminarily, it's a self-regulating mechanism. And I can really see from the Ministry of Commerce and even with our discussions on even with the stakeholder consultations, that they really want this to work. They don't want this to be a penalty-based kind of system. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Gretchen. You mentioned that you went around and then check other countries' experience or practice with code of conduct and trust mark, which is always something that you must have to do, like have benchmark or baseline. And in that context, there is also the ASEAN trust mark scheme roadmap, which provides guidance to ASEAN member states who wants to establish a trust mark, not only for e-commerce, it can be for other sectors. So there are a lot of good practices, and then an additional one, hopefully soon, will be the digital trade review of ASEAN that Massimo, I would not say Massimo is doing, but Massimo's organization is spearheading. Digital trade moves very quickly in ASEAN. Her Lokchum Chu Chamnimul mentioned this morning the Digital Economic Framework Agreements, the DIFA, and other agreements that Cambodia is a member to, a signatory of. And these agreements contains dozens of provisions, sometimes existing one like online consumer protections, like data privacy, but sometimes very new one, like trust mark, for instance. So I'd like to understand what is it, this digital trade review of ASEAN that OECD is conducted, and what could be the lessons or the practices that Cambodia could learn from it and could adopt in the future. Over to you, Massimo.
Thank you very much. Sven, Mr. Moderator, and good morning, colleagues. And it's a great pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for inviting me and inviting the OECD to this important event. Cambodia has made remarkable progress in trade and integration over the last 2 decades. And now digitalization is creating a new engine for growth. And I also arrived yesterday at the new airport, and it's actually impressive how digitally connected Cambodia is becoming. And indeed, we are conducting a digital trade review of ASEAN, which we expect that will be released towards the beginning of next year. It shows quite promising trends for Cambodia in this important area. Let me perhaps outline a few. First of all is that Cambodia's digital trade is relatively small, but it's growing fast. So Cambodia is sort of at the beginning of its digital trade journey, but starting strong. Digital trade today accounts for roughly 6% of Cambodia's total exports, which is still modest, but growing at more than 12% per year. And this is the fastest, fourth fastest rate in ASEAN. Exports of digitally delivered services such as ICT and business services are expanding even faster at around 16% annually, and this is above the global average. So quite remarkable achievements. The second point that I think is also very important is that the potential of digital trade is broad-based. So digital connectivity reduces trade costs across the whole economy, and we're undertaking an empirical analysis as part of this study that will be coming out with the study on the whole ASEAN, but also, of course, on Cambodia. And so whether you're exporting garments or agricultural goods or services, being digitally connected matters. So this is why digital trade is not only about high-tech sectors. It can help Cambodia's manufacturers and SMEs participate more effectively in global markets. The next point is on some of the levers, some of the factors to consider to fully exploit some of those benefits, and I think some of my colleagues here have already touched on some of them. The first one is connectivity, so ensuring that more Cambodians are aligned. We've seen internet penetrations have risen tenfold in the past decade to more than half of the population, and this is a remarkable achievement, but clearly there is still room to grow. The second point is also, and I cannot stress enough, is skills. So keeping people and firms with the digital capabilities to use new tools effectively. And openness, also very important. I must say the trend, worldwide trend in this area has not been very positive. We've seen increasing fragmentation, but keeping markets open so that Cambodian firms can access the best digital products, the best digital solutions at competitive prices, and then sell into larger markets abroad. And then the final point, and I'll be happy to elaborate perhaps a little bit more later, and how that links up also with the theme of the discussion, is the governance or international cooperation. I mean, clearly digital trade crosses borders, and so international cooperation, first and foremost, of course, in the ASEAN context, as part of regional integration. But I would also stress the significance of the multilateral trading system initiatives within that context to help avoid fragmentation and maximize the benefits of digitalization. And I can come back to some of your points later. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. Maybe you can keep the microphone, and I'm going to, I mean, you painted a very, not rosy, but optimistic and ambitious ecosystem and scene for digital trade growth. Cambodia is a newcomer, I would say, especially when it comes to cross-border e-commerce. And I'm sure being the newcomer, being the latecomer, can also have advantage, which is we can avoid the mistake and the pitfalls that others made before us. So what would be, according to the study that you're preparing, some of the challenges of the dangers that Cambodia should be aware of? I think of, I don't know, payment issue, data privacy, counterfeit products, illicit products, informal vendors. What would be the challenges that we have to be aware of before we move into this code of conduct and trust mark implementation?
Thank you very much, Sven. I mean, I think that's a very important point, and there is on the one hand the more sort of more traditional trade issues that the study really looks at, and you know it's coming from my colleagues in the trade area, so they're looking at trade patterns, you know, what are the key barriers to trade, and I'll be happy to elaborate on those on the services side, particularly telecommunications, digital infrastructure, being able to interconnect into the network. I think that those are very important. But also on the goods that are needed for producers to be able to source products affordably and then being able to export in larger markets. Then there is the whole system of e-contract, e-signatures, which is very important. So alignment with international conventions, particularly the UN Convention, UNCITRAL, in this area would clearly provide benefits. But then there is the whole issue of trust, on building trust. I mean, clearly, in order to be able to develop in this important area, trust has to be there. Consumers have to trust that what they're buying and for instance, all the issues that you mentioned on payment and so on are respected. In the OECD, we also have a strong standard setting function. So for instance, Thailand and Indonesia, the countries that I have the honor to be hosted in now, are going through the OECD accession process, which is basically about aligning with a range of standards. And we do have a range of standards also in this area about consumer protection, product safety, which is very important, being able to remove products that locate and remove unsafe products, and seek redress. Data privacy, we have long-standing standards in those areas. I mean, those can, in a way, complement. ASEAN already has a number of those, but those can complement ASEAN and can ensure that Cambodia can fully exploit its potential beyond the region, and also making Cambodia a more attractive FDI destination around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. Going back to you, Gretchen, on I'm talking to ADB, and I'm very happy ADB is supporting. Don't get me wrong, very happy for ADB to support the digital trade ecosystem. But more broadly, from a development partner perspective, we also have to bear in mind the sustainability aspect, the inclusivity aspect. So how can we ensure with the code of conduct, with the trust mark, that these tools and the platform become even more inclusive to women, to provincial businesses, but also, and I think it's very important for Cambodia, how we through the trust mark, how do we incentivize informal businesses, vendors who are now on YouTube, social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, who are not formal, who are not registered, right? How do we incentivize them also to move online, move to more established marketplaces, formalize themselves by being registered, because they would have the confidence that doing so will mean more business, more visibility for themselves. So you only have 2 hours to respond? No, you have 5 minutes, sorry.
That's many questions, but I'm happy to respond. And as mentioned earlier, we have been, ADB, the Asian Development Bank, has been supporting the study on the Code of Conduct and the Cambodia e-commerce trust mark scheme. And preliminarily, in the study that we've conducted by our experts, Danny Burrows, Niaret Shreng, in full disclosure, you also, Sven, was also one of our experts, is to take into consideration all of these factors that you mentioned earlier. So, for example, for affordability, let's say some considerations were made, like if you are a first-time e-commerce operators, that it's possibly free or very low charge. And there's also like a digital assessment tool which you can use so that before you apply, you have a checklist of what needs to be done, meaning you know what's expected when you apply for this platform. And for scalability, we can look into, and my colleague Carolyn Flory is here earlier because she's with the digital sector office, and she hopefully would take on the implementation stage of the trust mark. So we could look into existing or possible applications, for example, where it could be like a one-stop shop where you could do the application, verification, renewal, thereby making easier for businesses to apply for either the trust mark scheme and ensuring that they have complied with the code of conduct. And then as for awareness and marketing, I remember Rata Chea, Her Excellency LCT Rata Chea shared about Grab's 50% off when you go here. So meaning we could have some creativity in discussing on how we could market this COC and sets to basically incentivize businesses. So something like that, you know, like there's a discount or if you are part of, if you comply with the set of standards, and perhaps you could join this marketing or scheme providing discounts to customers. And then lastly, because of the study that we have conducted, we have ensured that there's regional alignment and that basically this is in line with international standards, so that when it comes into force, that it will be recognized internationally as well. Because with digital, we're not only thinking of, you know, domestic national products, but, you know, basically the world, global. So I'm here to say that we're all here. Carolyn, Milan Thomas is here. We're here all to listen what the gaps are, and we'll try our very best to provide and support Cambodia. Thanks.
Thank you, Gretchen. I'm going to go back now to the private sector. Yes, Oleg, this is you, and Mike, this is you as well. So Oleg, you mentioned before the blockchain, and that it would be foolish to come to Cambodia and not like working with Bakong. But as I mean, you can speak for Zen.com, or you can speak for more broadly for cross-border payment financial providers. What can you do to enhance trust for Cambodian buyers in paying securely online? What can be done? Is it promotion, awareness? Is it technology? What are maybe the experiences from other countries that you say, well, we went to this country, and in order for buyers to feel confident to buy online with the debit card, credit card, or other means, we did A, B, C?
That's $1 million question, so thank you. You promised tricky questions, you deliver. So there are books written on this. There is a lot of theory, but at the end of the day, it's all about execution. So the benefit of Zen.com is that we cater to both individual customers and business customers. So in other words, the more merchants you have, the more customers will trust you and come on board with you. The more customers you have, the more merchants will come. It's hard to say which one is more important or which one should go first. So you will have to approach the market everywhere at once. But the current idea and how we expand it to different markets is to open different regions for small and medium enterprises. For example, let's say Cambodian merchants who want to approach Europe. That's complicated. You need a new entity, you need new contracts, you need new law, new tax, new everything. We plan to utilize, we do this, but not yet in Cambodia, to utilize the synergies in between licenses to leverage existing customer database, to bring our entire European customer database to Cambodia market, to basically show them that it exists. It's fairly unknown, as it was mentioned. This is a growing market, this is a new market, which doubled in size during last decade, if I heard correctly one of the previous keynotes. So that's while building the trust with merchants that we deliver on our promises to expose them to the new market and creating visibility with the merchants, we will receive access to local customers who will subsequently trust us, and we will connect those buyers with merchants abroad. So this is a complex network. Nothing is complicated about the strategy. The execution trumps theory any hour of the day. So that's generally how I would see that you must approach this market. I'm a bit biased, I must say, because I'm from risk and compliance, so everything is revolving around that. You have to be prepared. You have to anticipate customer needs. You have to anticipate the threats. With noble goal to serve customers and promote small and medium enterprises, it's absolute 100% sure that the fraudsters will come first. Because they track the market, they target new players, they might be unaware of new attacks or of new approaches. I'm sure my colleague from Grab can concur to that. They will come first. So you have to be prepared to that, as well as to the good practices and allowing good customers and businesses to grow. And that's one of the points where code of conduct plays a crucial role. because your employees and your staff are educated on what's important, what's not important, what's correct, what's not correct, what's true, what's not. You know this saying that has been misquoted for decades now, that the customer is always right. That's not how it goes. It's half of the quote. The quote goes, the customer is always right in the matter of taste, which means we are not in position to tell customer what he wants to buy or where he wants to buy it. We are there to deliver the service. But the customer is not right that he wants to buy, I don't know, a car in the middle of the night from different country. Yeah, there is no such right. We are in full control and full possession to deny the service in order to protect the customer, which is the basically flip side of the same coin, allowing businesses to grow and protecting them at the same side. Same refers to the customers. You must allow customers to feel confident and free and speed of transactions, and don't be overcharged on currency exchange or transaction processing. But at the same time, you have to protect customer interests, and in case of doubt, reconfirm with customer, reconvene. And we have a lot of success stories when we reached out to customers and heard, no, I didn't do that. How did you even catch it? Like, we pay attention to you and to what your needs are, how you transact. It's completely not typical for this particular customer. So that's very short. I can tell this same story for an hour or so.
Well, actually, I'm going to ask Mike to continue a bit the discussion further, because we can build trust, we can have code of conduct, but sometimes the trust is breached. Sometimes, as you've just described, things can happen, counterfeit product, you don't get your product, and a dispute may arise out of this. So what I'd like to hear from you, Mike, is like, first of all, from a Grab perspective, what is the mechanism for dispute resolutions? Do you have such thing as an online dispute resolutions? And what can we learn from your experience that would be useful for other platforms and marketplaces in Cambodia, especially if we have in mind the adoption of the code of conduct and of the e-commerce trust mark?
Thanks, Sven. I think to gain that trust, the very first role is for platforms is to make disputes and resolution very fast and simple, as clear as that, fast and simple. But then again, simple can be subjective to the users also. We might have solutions, but does not mean that everyone find these solutions simple, right? So we need to cater and really listen to customers and continue to push for having multiple disputes and resolution. For example, at Grab, we have many ways to dispute. If you order food, you order two food, a burger and a Coke. Coke does not come. You can dispute by submitting a form. Very easy. Just take a photo, just submit a few words, and then we have AI, we have something to identify and give you refund immediately. If your delivery comes late, we have a delivery promise and compensation to them also. But not every customer knows or like to submit forms or take photo. Some people prefer calls. So we also open up to live chat or to our customer support, to call, to allowing them to dispute and get their resolution fast and simple. That is the goal. How we do it might change over time, but the key is fast and simple. And then I think the second one, the role is to give customers clarity and confidence. We do this by having a clear price, no hidden fees, very clear upfront price. For example, if you see our ride-hailing, you want to go to point A to point B, the price is there. It's right there. It's very clear. So try to seek for this, give customers this clarity and a confidence that if anything goes wrong, we can solve it for them. They can dispute. And I think the third role is to, again, invest in technology to identify, to use data to identify patterns, detect like wrong behaviors, and try to shape the behaviors. Again, doing this in a scalable way, not people manually scrolling it because that's not scalable. So invest in this technology to flag bad behavior so that we can take action on them. That is third. And then I think last one is commitment to data privacy and giving customers trust that we hold their data, that their data privacy is safe with us. We have the top-notch cybersecurity technology to ensure their payment data, their personal data is safe. And the practice inside, not just in tech and database, but even the practice within the team needs to be very clean, needs to be very compliant. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. So that's a good lessons for other platforms in Cambodia. So thank you for this, your answer for the time management, excellent time management. But those were the easy questions from me. So I'm going to now turn to the audience for questions to our panelists. Not to me, they are the expert. Please ask them the question. So if you have any question, please raise your hand. If you have a question, really, we don't want a sales speech. We don't want to comment. We really want questions so we can continue the discussion. Tell us where you're from and to which of the panelists your question is addressed to. So we have a number of microphones. I see that we also have a headset, so you may ask your question in Khmer as well. And the floor is yours. Over to you. Any question from the room? Please raise your hands. Don't be shy. The gentleman in the front. So set a good practice where you're from, who your question is for. You can.
Thank you, panelists, for your sharing session.
Can you speak in the microphone?
Okay. My name is Pekara. I'm from Ministry of Post and Telecommunication. So my question to, yes, I want to hear from Grab as well because, yes, the giant company. You mentioned about the data privacy and also invest. So code of conduct across the market. I'm from the Child Online Protection Working Group, so I just want to hear from you any experience, best practice regarding to the just only not protect your consumer, but also the children as well, because you may know that the consumer, the order is not just for a parent and also the children ordering food as well. So we want to hear the best practice in Grab. Thank you. Did you hear did you get my question?
I heard part of it, so if you don't mind, say the question again closer to the microphone. I caught bits and pieces.
Yes, Grab also have comply so many code of conduct across the market. We want to hear about the code of conduct regarding to the child online protection as well.
Okay, so you said child?
Yes, because yes.
Child. Oh, yeah.
Child online protection.
Yes, that's extremely slippery slope. So the children are protected as they should be by a whole different set of laws, especially when it comes to financial awareness and access to means of financial network. So Zen at this point does not offer underage accounts, but there are conversations how to create financial awareness and how to manage money with certain population. When speaking child, there is at least three categories. So one of them is completely inaccessible. It's children below the age of 12. They are not allowed to access financial services by no means, and not that I'm aware of products for this particular age category. There are prepaid means which are treated as the pocket money, but that goes beyond the standard financial services. So the adult comes and issues a prepaid something, I don't know, prepaid card, prepaid voucher, prepaid QR code, anything. And it's treated instead of cash. Serves the exactly same purpose. And it's fully in control, under the control of the parents' supervisors. When it comes to the group age above 12 to 18, those kids, to 16, so to speak, those kids are already transacting online more than their parents usually, at least definitely in a different proportion. And this should come with a separate set of rules similar to parental control you can install on your phone, on your TV, on different apps. Certain content and certain products should not be made available for kids. So you differentiate on the payment method itself, on the payment instrument itself, to where it can be used, so it cannot be abused. The biggest abuse that is noted on the market is interoperability, which is generally speaking, the goal of financial services, to be able to transact in between countries, in between financial services. But you are not, this particular group of customers may not be allowed to use that service. So if I have this payment means, which has its limitations, it cannot be paid for, I don't know, alcohol, let's use big guns. Alcohol or some content that is unavailable for kids should not be available for kids, or something that requires legislation, prescription, medication. Children are not allowed to do that. But if you use that payment method to top up another payment method and use that, that's basically as close to money laundering as it gets. However innocent the purpose was. Let's say I want to buy, I don't know, Pokemon cards or whatever on some fishy webpage. The children must be stopped from doing that. So both the code of conduct and the compliance rules related to that and surrounding that are much, much stricter and harsher. The last category of children is basically between 16 to 18, and it's hard to treat them children at that stage in time, because in most countries they're allowed to get married, not allowed to use adult content services, but allowed to get married, which is weird in the first place. But nonetheless, this is where you should promote, referring to the opening statement of my colleague from GRAP, the education is key. At that stage, you must educate how financial services work, how scams work, how your credential works, how important your data is. You should not walk around and wave your payment method. You should not walk around and wave with your ID, where it will compromise yourself in the means that you have never been exposed to. Even us adults are usually scammed, and we fall victims to phishing and to other scams. Children are much more susceptible to that, so it's obligation, regardless of the law is protecting, I think, well enough. It's moral obligation, it's ethical obligation to protect the children by all means necessary, even if it means, especially if it means preventing them from doing harm to themselves.
Thank you, Oleg.
I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Oleg. Does any one of the other speakers want to react on this, or no? Massimo? No.
Maybe just as a point of information, among the guidelines that we have at the OECD that can complement ASEAN's, as I mentioned earlier, we have one that is specifically targeted at children online. So key, but kind of basic, but strong principles on design, safety by design, platforms and providers, parental control, screening, etc. That's all in there. So just as an additional point here.
Okay. Thank you, Massimo. Going back to the audience, additional question, more questions to our panelists. Yeah, the gentleman over there on the right. Make sure the microphone works this time.
Okay. Hello, my name is Shane. Thank you very much, by the way, for the exciting panel discussion today. I'm from an advisory firm based in Cambodia called Profitance. So my question to the panelists surrounds data storage and data protection, because I think this is something that goes hand in hand with code of conduct, especially for e-commerce and digital trade. And my question to you would be, I guess, what are your, my question is to the panelists from the private sector, because you both represent firms that are not local. What are your opinions on where the data should be stored, whether in Cambodia or outside Cambodia, and kind of what are some challenges that you face when it comes to data protection and regulations regarding this? Thank you.
Right. So I will turn to Mike first, and then maybe Oleg, if you want to say a word.
Okay, thanks for the question. I think, in my opinion, it's not. In my thinking, the consideration should be where is safe, right? Where is having the most protected, because the goal is to protect the data. And then the first question is where is the safest possible that we can afford or we can do. Now, on location-wise, it gets a lot more trickier when we operate a multi-countries international app, where, for example, Grab, our customers can, the same account, the same person, a Singaporean, can come into Cambodia and the account just works. So then the question of where the data is stored, I am afraid I cannot give my personal opinion on this, but my approach would be wherever is safe for the customers, because that's the goal. Yeah, but it gets tricky when it cross-border platforms. Yeah.
And I'd like to, before I give the microphone to Oleg, in Cambodia, at the moment, we don't have a personal data protection law. It's being drafted by NBTC, but it's not there yet. So if you were to ask the same question next year, hopefully there'll be a more firm answer. And Mike will have to say, yeah, we have to abide by Cambodia law, so we store our data in Cambodia, right? But Oleg, you have a take on this as well?
Yeah, so from our side, the financial institution, there is only two ways to store data from regulatory point of view. So regardless of all the safety requirements, of which I'm unfortunately not an expert in, there is a set of standards starting from payment card industry, standards PCI DSS, and all related to personal data, GDPR in Europe, data protection from this country or that country. Aside of all that, there is two differences. One is on-soil requirement or lack of thereof. On-soil requires you to store data in physical territory of that particular country. Some countries have it, some countries don't. For example, European Union has it under GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. All the data must be stored physically on the territory of European Union. But servers is nothing else as somebody else's computer. Unless you own your own data center and you manage that, it's cloud-based, so it's somebody else's computer. Let's go big guys, Amazon, Azure, or cloud something. There is plenty of them. So coming back to your point about cross-border, by distributing your data into different countries, you're exposing yourself to the attack during the data transmission. So okay, on when it's stored, it's secured, but you have to transfer the data, right? So, and that's the vulnerable point. So the more points you create, however good your intentions are, it can have a backlash. So the standard of security should be elevated to the, let's say, reasonable extent, because the only way not to have this risk is to shut down the business. That's the only way. But the requirements of physical presence are less relevant from my perspective, because it's server as any other, it's based in this country or that country. Other factors kick in. Cost of maintaining that infrastructure, maintenance, latency. Nothing frustrates the new generation. Funny story. So my generation, I'm old enough to say that, we could wait on the phone line for like 20 minutes to call center to pick up. New generation abandons checkout if it processed more than 3 seconds. And paradoxically, it's the same generation that will spend hours upon hours surfing the internet looking for that particular headphones they like. So it's paradox that exists, and you must maintain and navigate while maintaining your security standards to adhering to the current requirements of your customers and merchants. Nobody will wait for your transaction to be processed like 50 minutes. That time is long gone. 3 seconds, that's your limit. Afterwards, no, I'm switching to a different provider that will deliver this to me. So going back to the data protection, especially in financial services, and Grab, I think, holds financial license in several jurisdictions, it's as important as code of conduct, and basically it's part of it as information security.
All right. Mr. Gladwin, you happy with the answer? Yeah, okay. Please, any other question from the audience? Don't be shy. Oh. Yes, please. Sorry, Gretchen.
Just not a question, just to add on the data protection conversation earlier. So I share the same view that where the data is stored is less relevant. However, like for in terms of compliance with data protection requirements, the discussion on this is really what the protocol is when you're a service provider. So basically, are the data collated relevant, how it is stored, who has access to such information? If you're no longer a client, then how many years will such entity be stored before they are completely destroyed? And whenever there's conversation on digital platforms security, there's always that issue on cybersecurity, and that's why whenever there's and let me take this opportunity to promote the e-learning modules that we have conducted, that we have supported in ADB. Basically, there needs to be a cybersecurity training for all those staff handling personal data. They need to know what they would do in case they encounter those. So I think that's the more important discussion when you talk about the personal data. Yeah.
Sorry, I kept forgetting that behind the ADB officer, there's also a lawyer. So thank you for this point. I see that our MC is already standing here, so that usually is a bad sign. Do we still have time for a few questions? One more question. So we have one more question before we wrap up this panel discussion. Anyone from the room for a question to our audience? Anyone? You know, we are the last thing standing between you and the lunch. If I don't have a question, we are not going to stop. So make sure that you ask a question now. Anyone? No, I don't see any question, unfortunately. So maybe what I'll do, and this is completely off script, don't be scared, is this panel is really first and foremost about governance and trust, right? We hope that this code of conduct will be issued and enforced very soon. Maybe as a way to wrap up, as a final word from each of you on how important you see this code of conduct and what can be done to make sure that it is useful. It's not just a paper, but that it actually serves the ecosystem to make it more predictable, more secure for every traders in Cambodia or outside wanting to trade with Cambodia. So I'll give you 1 minute each to give your answer, and then we will wrap it up. Mike?
Okay, I think my last impression is this is a teamwork, right? We as a platform, government, our consumers, our merchant partners, all of us needs to play part into this commitment together. You cannot just only the ones, this is really a teamwork. So by everyone commitment to following code of conduct, the trust mark will not just be a logo. It gives consumer confidence, and it will take us very far, even beyond borders. So I really encourage everyone, every partners, platforms, to really committed to following and having a high standard of these code of conduct together. Only then it will work as a whole. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Massimo?
Thank you, Sven. I mean, I think the point I would like to close with is good to look at all international standards to ensure interoperability, and to think about this initially perhaps as voluntary, but then also to start thinking about what are some of the areas where perhaps more stronger requirements may be needed. At the OECD, we'll be very happy to support in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. Oleg?
So I would circle back to something I said before. Aside of the disaster that never happened, which is in my area of expertise and in my tasks, if you automate this process and proper behavior with customer data, proper approach to transaction security, you can focus on your business because you're not distracted by minor disasters that are happening because, oh, that person sent the email to the wrong destination having customer data, or that one did not lock his computer off, so data leaked. If you cut all those nuisances, so to speak, you can focus more on your business and it will even drive it faster and better because everything else is automated. Everybody is aware what to do. Everybody is aware that this is important. So aside of legal and protection value, it has extreme business value.
Thank you, Oleg. And final words of wisdom from Gretchen.
Yeah, in my 18 years of experience, definitely words of wisdom. So as final words, I would just like to echo the sentiment earlier that this code of conduct is really, everyone has a stake here. The government in ensuring that the policy, the oversight, that they are in place and that the business, that the private sector, small, medium, and large enterprises, they can all feed into this information. They provide their input, what is doable, what is practicable for them. And for the ADB side, we will, of course, do our very best to provide technical assistance to basically support all of these activities and ensure that whatever Cambodia will have is in line with international standards. Thanks.
Thank you, Gretchen. And I think we don't have any more time for questions. So I'd like, first of all, to thank you all in the room for staying and listening. I hope you have learned new things. I hope the government officials, especially my colleague from MOC, has also taken note and that this would provide impetus for the implementation of the Code of Conduct and of the trust mark in the near future. If you are a business, if you are a vendor, a merchant in Cambodia, be rest assured that there is no obligation. There will be mechanism for education, for awareness raising, for discussion, for moving online, embedded in the trust mark. The trust mark will be the focus of another panel during this trade forum. So if you are interested in learning more about the trust mark for e-commerce in Cambodia, please join the next panel. For us, before we close, I'd like to ask you to join me in giving applause to our distinguished panelists. Thank you. You've been very good. Yeah. You've focused on the questions and you've looked at the time, so that was very a pleasure. And without further ado, I'd like to give back the floor to our wonderful MC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. ចានាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពថ្លែងអំណរគុណចំពោះវាគ្មិនកិត្តិយសទាំងអស់និងអ្នកសម្របសម្រួលកិច្ចពិភាក្សាដែលបានផ្ដល់កិត្តិយសចូលរួមបកស្រាយនៅរបបកំហើញសំខាន់ជូនដល់អង្គពិធីចាសូមលោកស្រីដែលជាវាគ្មិនកិត្តិយសនិងអ្នកសម្របសម្រួលមេត្តាបន្តវត្តមាននៅលើវេទិកាចាជាបន្តទៅទៀតនេះនាងខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតគោរពអញ្ជើញអាយដាមកឹមស៊ីថនរដ្ឋលេខាធិការប្រចាំការអញ្ជើញផ្ដល់កិត្តិយសជូនវត្ថុអនុស្សាវរីយ៍ដល់អ្នកសម្របសម្រួលវេទិកានិងវាគ្មិនកិត្តិយសទាំង4រូបចាសូមគ្រប់អញ្ជើញលោកឯកឧត្តម Sven Callebaut ចាដើម្បីទទួលនៅវត្ថុអនុស្សាវរីយ៍ផ្ទាល់ពីឯកឧត្តមរដ្ឋលេខាធិការប្រចាំការចាសូមអញ្ជើញplease ជូនចាលោកកងសវណ្ណរូតចាលោក Massimo Geloso Grosso លោកចាលោក Oleg និងលោកស្រី Gretchen Aquino ចាសូមគោរពអរគុណចំពោះការអញ្ជើញផ្ដល់កិត្តិយសសូមឯកឧត្តមរដ្ឋលេខាធិការចាំការមេត្តាផ្ដល់កិត្តិយសថតរូបអនុស្សាវរីយ៍ចាសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញ